can get a copy of the agenda.
And the elders can supervise.
The elders can supervise. I like it. I mean, was that? Oh, yes. I'm praying 90 minutes. I don't like that I have script three and that. Yes, boss. When you see the light shade, I was like, what? Natasha, did you see a script one on that sheet too? Did I miss something? I'm sorry. Like they're supposed to. We're all gonna have a moment to fill out that before you can do anything. It's my thought. Unless you wanna, we can go print a sign off.
If we turn that in, then she wakes up and our leader just say, no, these are the people that showed up.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, just do audio.
Good afternoon. So let's open with a word of prayer. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for um, the changes that are occurring in the atmosphere. We thank you for 53 degrees yesterday and 44 today and rain and whatever it's going to be, we're going to weather it and still give you praise. We thank you for our time together today. This time that we have to explore the business of keeping your people safe, the opportunities that we have, God, to shepherd and to minister and to cover young people and disabled adults. And so we thank you for the opportunity, God, to thank you for choosing us. Thank you for choosing us to do this, your work. And we thank you that sometimes the grunt work or the things that we don't think are the most exciting, that we have to still deal with, that you give us the opportunity to do that. So God, as we move through this time together today, we ask that you would be present. We ask that we would be attentive and that we would leave this place better equipped to serve your people. We thank you. Amen.
Dr. Natasha Ivory, can you do me one quick favor and go upstairs? I forgot to hit go live, I think, on the recording. Look around the room for me. My name is Ashton Dupler. Most of you know me. If you don't, oh, it is. Oh, and why is it going there? Ooh, we don't want that. Oh, Natasha, when you get up there, can you toggle off everything but YouTube on Restream? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, again, good afternoon. My name is Ashton Dupler. I'm one of the people who gets the privilege of serving here at McKinley UMC, as well as working at the Dayton Equity Center. I'm grateful for each of you taking time out to do what's really important, and that is to talk about how we protect the people that Kimma, in her prayer, mentioned. And so as a person who has been graced by and given the opportunity to come into church and experience. So we have to do this every year, but I don't want us to think about it like that. I'd like us to think about the fact that we get to do this every year because we get the privilege, the opportunity, and the pleasure of working with people whom God loves. And so whether you're coming to us as a member of McKinley or you're coming to us as an employee of one of the great partners that we have in ministry, in Ebenezer Healthcare Access, in the Dayton Equity Center, in the fabulous drill team that meets here in NA, for instance, I'm not going to try to leave anybody out, Girls Emerging into Maturity, or in our work with, and I'm blanking now, I'm missing one entity, and I can't remember. Oh, the Dayton Equity Center. Yeah, the one that pays my bills. Imagine that. We thank you for the work that you do day in and day out. Most of us here might do a number of different things, but I want you to look around the room and just say thank you to each other. This place doesn't just open up the doors. When you were cold yesterday and Mr. Hummons fought with A. Abel and we fussed at each other, that someone had to make sure that bills were paid, that lights were on, and for you, someone had to make sure that phone calls were made, and so all of that work makes this a place where I believe people experience love and light and peace. And so we want to continue to make that a place for everybody, and so we have to check some of these boxes. If you look at your schedule, I want to be out of here in 90 minutes. I'm not Reverend Deb. Shocking, I know. I am not Reverend Deb. Reverend Deb, we need to pray for her husband. She was just not able to attend today, and so I said, you know what, I'll mumble through this and people will hate it a little bit more, and so we're going to try to keep this to 90 minutes. I'm going to do one more preacher thing, and I just ask you a question. Whose house is this? Oh, all right. This is God's house. So we have the responsibility to, even if we're working in a secular institution or with people who don't know God or don't want to know God, we acknowledge that God is represented by these walls. And so what happens in here doesn't just have a weight of what did our company do, what did our church do, what did our organization do, what did our drill team do this year, what did our ministries do this year. It has weight on people's lives, their spirituality, and ultimately we believe their soul. And so we take this work seriously, and Dr. Roper is going to help me walk through these three pieces. You may have watched this on a video in your onboarding. I'm sorry, Jared. You might have seen this, Mimi, before, but we want to renew our commitment and go over some new items that we need to make sure that we're covering so that we can continue to be a place where people come in and encounter that powerful relationship with the divine that they get a chance to do. And so however we do that or wherever we do that, we want to know that this is God's house and it's McKinley United Methodist Church on the insurance. And so we've got to make sure that even if you represent another organization or institution, your lease or your contract or your agreement has to do with the fact that we want the kids, the vulnerable adults, and anyone who walks through these doors to be safe. Be safe. So, all of that to say, I want to just welcome you to this space. There's look at these signs we left up from Sunday. Welcome, we're glad you're here. We are glad you're here. The reason why we get to do what we do is because you come in here, maybe on a Tuesday night or maybe on a Saturday morning or what have you. And it's our time together today that supports our ability to serve and value children, teens, and vulnerable adults, which is one of the greatest things that we can do. So we just want to say thank you to you for taking the time to complete this Safe Sanctuary training. Safe Sanctuaries is not just about a sanctuary, it's about the fact that we want to make sure that when people enter this space, you all know what to do if something is wrong. You all know what to look for when you're looking for something. If you see something, say something, and how to report that, because we don't want anyone in the dark about how we report, prevent, and keep people safe in the event of abuse, or hopefully to prevent any kind of abuse or even the thought of that. And so throughout this time, you'll be acquainted with our safety procedures, our best practices. You will also complete a brief assessment of the material presented. You will also be asked to complete an application, a statement of faith, and hopefully, if you have not already through your organization, receive a background check. And so at McKinley, we have a sacred call to make this a priority. This is a scripture verse that Deb has pointed out. Psalms 127:3 from the NIV Bible reads, "Children are heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward." These words from scripture remind us that this is true, that young children, teens, older vulnerable adults, or vulnerable adults in general are truly God's gift. As a volunteer or a paid staff person, you are helping us guide those we serve know how much they are loved, valued, and cared for. I think the mission of most of our organizations is to provide some kind of care for people who don't get it carte blanche in our society. And so whether we think about them as vulnerable or not, most of the people who darken our door for Ebenezer or for the gathering or for the food pantry or for to come upstairs to see Fred for workforce development are experiencing some vulnerability. Anyone in here today experiencing any vulnerability in their own personal life or feeling like things are sliding out of control? When people come here, they're usually not feeling like they're all together. And we want to make sure that the parts that they do interact with us here, no one feels like things are sliding further out of their control. There are just 3 things we think about when we want people to kind of leave here. Maya Angelou said what? That you will forget what people say, you'll forget what they do, but you'll never forget how they make you feel. You'll never forget how people make you feel. We're not going to go around the room and do a testimony. We'd be here all day. But you can remember how someone made you feel last week and 40 years ago. You remember that like it was yesterday. And on top of the fact that that can happen here, because it can happen anywhere, there are stained glass windows and signs and furniture that help us remember that this is a house that was built to worship God. And so it comes with a certain kind of responsibility that we have to each other. These 3 things to help folks feel safe, loved, and protected. Each one we must know is this: when they are safe, people feel valued. When they are loved, they matter and they feel like they can make a difference. And when they are protected, they can be heard. I'm going to say that one more time because Deb has done a great job of just kind of identifying some of the reasons why we do what we do. When they are safe, they feel valued. When they are loved, they matter and they feel like they can make a difference. And when they are protected, they can be heard. And so what we want to do is, before we get into where you put your signature at the bottom and what form happens when this terrible event, that's the reason why we do this process. And it's why we do it every year, because, y'all, I'm forgetful, okay? I was putting the bottle on upside down yesterday, trying to screw the thing on with the nipple. It was just, ridiculous. So if I forget how to do that, I'm assuming that you do not think about how to prevent abuse at McKinley United Methodist Church on 196 Hawthorne Street every day. So we want to just make sure we cover that. And so as an employee or a volunteer or a staff person, you are called to support those that we serve, but you are also supported yourself. You have also felt that feeling of being unheard, of being undervalued, of being disrespected. And we want to create a place where if you feel like that, you know who to talk to. You know how to do that in a way that will not only garner some support, but you know that there is a policy that can hold you up while you're feeling vulnerable. Because we don't want anybody in this building to feel like they're a casualty of our ministry or our mission. So with that being said, this training is offered to keep you safe, to love you, and to protect you and your integrity. And so that's why we want to kind of continue to do this well. I want to kind of turn now to a couple forms that we'll begin to discuss throughout the day. You got maybe a copy of 3 different things that will help us make sure that those values that I just talked about actually happen. First thing, this is what we're asking you to sign today. It's not just a legal requirement. This is a commitment that in this building, this is what we're about. It's 7 different things that we're going to commit to, whether we get paid a lot of money. We get paid no money to be here. We're a volunteer or a staff person. We work for somebody else or we work for McKinley. We're saying that these 7 things are why we do what we do. And so if you have questions about that, if you want to kind of say, hey, what's this about? Hold on. This is what we need from you today in order to track your attendance. And if for some reason you're watching this video in post, because I won't call you out, but one of our members has torn their Achilles and is not able to be here. So we want to make sure that you get us a signed copy of this back, so we make sure that we are doing our due diligence as staff and stewards of this building and this place of ministry, that you understand what your responsibility is and our commitment is as McKinley. The second piece of paper is available in our office. It is a McKinley UMC suspected or witnessed incident of abuse form. It is a fairly simple form that you can write up, that you can grab at any time. It's with all of our other forms in the office, so you don't need to sweat or feel like you're going to be seen going for the form. And you can begin, as we go through this training, to know who you need to send that to in the event of suspected or witnessed abuse. And so with all of that, this is not fun stuff, okay? And typically, I'm a fun guy, but typically. But as I turn it over to Pastor Kimma, she might have something to say about that. No.
So if I were to walk into the office right now, where would I know where to find these forms?
I hope we can walk through that today. So in the secretary's office, you all know the copier, right? A good old faithful copier. The mailboxes are on your left. On your right, there's a door called Hummons Hall. So if you walk up our steps to our front door, our first door off the parking lot, you turn that corner, you come up those steps, you go to your left, there's a secretary's office. You can go in that door. But what we're really talking about is Hummons Hall, that next door, and there are some forms on the back of there. Some of those forms you will never, ever need. It's a thingamajig, isn't it? I mean, yeah. Yeah, so in that are reimbursement forms. In that are video and photo release forms. In that are every form we ever need. Our building, many of you have filled out our online building, request form. That's there. So that's right there in that section, and it's also online. So if you go to, if you're a Dayton Equity Center employee, we have it online on our employee dashboard. And I'll make sure that if there is a small link at the bottom of our page on our About Us section on our website, you can click that link and download that. Did I do it okay? Insider language, insider stuff. Sometimes we church folk are like, yeah, it's in the place. You don't know where the place is? No. So if you have any concerns about, hey, where's this at? Please walk with me at the end of the service, and we'll go directly to that. Okay. The last thing is we're going to read this line by line. No, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that. We're going to just go through the overall gist of our full policy. This, as you can see, is 18 pages. It was reviewed last year. You can see 1123 on the bottom. Deb is going to make some changes following this meeting, and some of the feedback that you give us in the form at the end and in this conversation here is going to help guide, hey, do we have this? Do we have this as a part of what we do? A lot of policies, a lot of paper gets put on a table, and we don't touch it. We don't do anything with it. We want this to be a living document that helps guide our community of not just faith, but of powerful service to the community. All that to say, I am going to step aside, ask Dr. Oprah to come up and do the second part, but I just talked about a whole lot of stuff, why we're doing this and what we're doing today. Does anyone have any questions about that or concerns that you want to bring forward before we go on to the next piece? Hearing none, I'm going to turn it over to the Dr. Jocelyn Marie Roper to help us go to the next section. Thank you, Doc. Doc, you.
Now we're going to talk about this being a safe space, this building being a safe space. And as we think about it being a safe place, We want to remember that it is a place where relationships matter. It is a place that values those who come, whether they're young or old or any of those other things those other adjectives we like to add. A place where full participation is offered today and tomorrow. The training is designed to create safe space, and that's what we're going to be doing. We want children and teens especially to know that they can be with the leaders and be present with them now and in the future, and that they matter so much to the adults who are working with them. We also want vulnerable adults to know that just as there are secure spaces for our younger generations, secure places can be a reality for them too. Now we're going to go over some of the things that are required of us as we move forward. The first thing is, how do we prevent some of these measures? And one of the things that we must remember is the guidelines that help us to understand how you do those preventative measures. Best practices with employees and volunteers. You must be 18 or older to volunteer if working with students or youth. If you're working with older youth, it's advisable that you're at least 25. You must have no convictions of a crime against children, students, youth, or vulnerable adults. I said a lot there. Anybody got questions? Okay. Well, you may not have this. I have a script. Okay. But this is all available in the video. You must have been in a relationship with McKinley for 3 to 6 months before volunteering. Best practices for programs presence. All programs will have the two-person rule, engaging 2 unrelated volunteers and a roamer in the event of absence or an extra need. In other words, if you have an event with children, there have to be 2 adults present all the time, and if not, there needs to be a roamer that's checking in your area on a regular basis to make sure that everything is going well. Okay? One-on-one meetings will take place in an open public setting or a room with a window in the door or the door open. So if you're meeting with a child or a vulnerable adult, you must be one-on-one. You must have a glass in the room that you're meeting, or the door must be open to allow folks to be able to see in and hear. These interactions will require written permission in advance from a parent or guardian. If you're going to meet with a young person, and even if they request it, you have to have permission from their parent or guardian. Best practice in the restroom. Do not be in a restroom alone with a child, student, youth, or vulnerable adult. 2 to 3 adults should be present if a child needs help. With two with the child and another adult is the best site. In other words, if there's another child and another adult where everybody can kind of see what's going on, that's the best case scenario. Best practice for disciplining. No physical discipline. Separate or remove students having problems. Best practices for employee and volunteer behavior. No sexually oriented humor or language. No derogatory or demeaning comments about race, gender, or sexual orientation. No undesired or unwelcome physical contact. No inappropriate comments about clothing or physical appearance. No inappropriate comments about mental or physical abilities. No inappropriate requests for outside social action. No ridicule. No gift giving without the knowledge of a parent. If gifts are given, give modestly to all. And one of the things we also need to think about under this section is texting and emailing unsolicited sexual comments to other people that you're working with or to children. It happens. And I was in West Ohio Conference when we had an occasion to find this whole relationship between a pastor and one of the students in the youth group. And there were texts and emails to back it up. So every time you send a text, don't think it just disappears into ether air. It can be traced. And so I know none of you will do that, but I just wanted to mention that because that is one of the biggest areas where there is abuse. People don't think that you can find it out there, but you can. All ministry supervisors are a good resource for best practice issues. So pastors in the church, let's all remember that we all have to have healthy relationships, strong values, and focus on the participation while you give guidance. Yes, sir. We do not, but we can create some. Or the parent can say, I give my child permission to meet with XYZ person for an hour on this day and time, and then they sign it. But yes. Right. A parent would write that. But we could probably put a form together, just a simple form that says, my child has permission to meet with XYZ adult for, like I said, a specified amount of time on a specific date. We all have files, and when we sign these things, they will go in the files with our signature pages about what we've done with Sanctuary. Is that correct, Ms. Andrea? Yes. So they will be maintained on file. Any other questions, comments? Yes? No. And we're going to get it. I've been begging. I bought some, but we need a regular, an actual big one that we can use, that we can keep on and let people know where that is. First aid kits. We have a few, but they're not the big ones that sometimes you're going to need if there's a specific, I mean, we've got some that have Band-Aids and gauze and cotton, but we need something more substantial. Yes. Anything else? All right.
You see how I made Dr. Rober read all the fun rules? I try to, lean on the previous experiences that we've all had in this room of thinking about, okay, what's gone wrong in the past? What do we anticipate in the future? So thank you for bringing up some things that we are either in writing, haven't done, or we haven't thought about yet. And so we want to continue. This is, again, the reason why we do this is to create a living document that continues to move and grow and evolve. So this is the last script for us for our training, and then we'll kind of turn it over to some building concerns after we do some scenarios. Yes, Doc.
So we need a form parents, a permission form. What was the other thing? Okay. Okay. Other church just bought a defibrillator. It was $1,000. We got one for we got one special about $1,200. So
Kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Listen, no, I. No. It's internal. It's internal. I really want to kind of. I think there's a program to help the institutions get a defibrillator, nonprofit institutions. So let me look into that. I thought I heard about that somewhere. So, cheers. Any other thoughts? Is that the last thing you had, Dr. Cheryl? So, Fred's gonna laugh because we have an acronym in our workforce department called SAFE, and it's corny, but and I'm gonna shame. Yeah, I like corny acronyms. I'm sorry. So Reverend Depp also has a corny acronym. No surprise there. That we have for SAFE. So SAFE, serious attention, full compliance, and effectiveness. Safety. I'm sorry. SAFE is S, serious, A, attention, F, full compliance, and E, effectiveness. And so we want to just kind of keep your attention on those four things because these forms will keep us focused on our space and compliant with the church at large. So the key word, again, the S reminds us that safety is a serious matter that shows love. A indicates that it requires our full attention to the details, the forms and procedures. F speaks to the full compliance expected of all volunteers, staff, and ministry participants. And E is about effectiveness of our safety policies and procedures. Effectiveness takes place when we properly staff our activities. Ooh, yikes, conviction. A lot of our ministries, a lot of our good deeds oftentimes start with a good idea and a really wonderful person, but then who is going to walk the kids to the restroom that's on the other floor or what have you, that gets lost in the mix. And so I appreciate Dr. Roper and Reverend Deb kind of drawing our attention to those specific things that may kind of pique your interest as you're thinking about your own employees in this building or outside and how we do that. So the first thing, the S, serious love, is first in any relationship, and it defines the work both of the church and any nonprofit or organization, the character of God and our mission in the world. In the Bible, we read in 1 John 4:19 that we love because God first loved us, and because God loved us, we ought to love one another. Now, even if you're not a Bible-believing Christian, you are probably motivated by the fact that someone cared for you, and we ought to create that care for someone else. And so we want to make sure that we give attention to all of the serious matters that might come under our purview, however they come to us. And so the seriousness of the work that we do and the way that we do it is really important. The A, giving attention to injury and permission, is a priority. We give attention to any injuries of any kind. Jared, don't laugh. We have a historical kind of policy at the after-school program. Some young person bumped their head the other day. Now, I saw it. I don't think that anything happened, but I gave that kid an ice pack anyway because I'm going to just give that the attention that it needs, even if I know that this young lady is, no offense, just like me, dramatic. Okay, facts, fair. We want to make sure that we give attention to any incident that comes in our way or in our purview. And so no matter how big or small, it hurts, and someone is hurting, and we want to draw attention to that. So physical injury hurts the body, and abusive injury might hurt not just the body, but also the heart, the emotions, the psyche of someone. And so we want to acknowledge that both, even if there are not scars, even if there are not scratches, abusive behavior hurts people. It hurts people. So we know that children will get hurt, that vulnerable adults will get hurt. Look at this building. There are enough steps in here to send us all to the ER. So stuff will happen, and I'm saying stuff on purpose. People get hurt. It's a risk we all take when we get together and participate in activities. You leave your house and someone is crazy and drives crazy and runs into your car or what have you. But we want to be a place where we try to prevent any kind of activity that would get someone hurt. And we want to do this in the best way possible. So when there's physical injury, that care may be some TLC, tender love and care. It might be just giving some attention to someone who has been hurt in any form or fashion. It might be an ice pack. It might be other appropriate attention. It may be calling 911. We would hate for that to happen, but we want to be prepared that no matter what we think it is, we want to do it some due diligence. I learned a ton recently when we had someone get injured at the elementary school, and we had to file a Bureau of Workers' Compensation claim. Luckily, everything's been taken care of, but I learned really quickly about a lot of bureaucracy that I didn't want to know about, but was necessary to keep people safe now and in the future and make sure someone's medical bills got paid. And so we want to make sure that you all know what to do with that attention. So if you see something, say something. Appearance, behavior, it may not be physical. I was just talking to someone the other day about, one of their scholars in their program, they knew that someone had been abused, and it became a long-standing kind of difficulty because they knew they had to report it, even though someone had said, oh, no, they just fell down the steps. It's no big deal. They saw those kind of bruises. They said something isn't right. Their behavior's not right. We want to be attentive to all of that. So if you see something, please say something. Reporters, that would be good. And I'm not sure if we I don't think it does. Can you give us some context on that?
There are some of us who we have to, if I'm talking to Jared and he reveals to me that his mother, used to make him sit outside on the porch in the wintertime when he didn't do what he was supposed to do, gotcha. Then I have to, there are some of us who, and normally it's people like teachers and some medical professionals, counselors, pastors, I have to report that. And so for those of us who may not be in that area or in one of those positions, we have conversations with people where some pretty provocative, pretty hurtful things can be revealed. And we want to make sure that we are equipped, number one, and if you're not equipped, that you tell that person and try to see if you can get them to a place where they can get help. I think all of us have good intention and good hearts, but there are some things that are best left even at the pastoral level. I know when I'm headed out into water that I can't recover from, so I'm going to make some referrals to potentially a professional, a LPC, a licensed professional counselor, or something like that. But yeah, some of us are mandated to have that conversation. So we want to make sure that people are aware of that. And for instance, like Anjanae, like for the drill team, for the children there, you're in an environment where you're having conversations, and kids nowadays, it's so weird. They'll just tell you anything. And you're sitting there like, my head blowing off, like the emoji, like, oh my God, did they just say? And so you have to figure out what you want to do about that and see one of us, and maybe we can give you some direction. We don't want you to have to try and handle that kind of stuff by yourself.
And that's where things get lost in the lurch, is when we try to say, you know what, let me think about. And I'll never forget, I was I was somewhere and someone began to tell me about something that was happening in my purview. And I said, you should have never told me this, because I was printing out forms right then. And they were like, please don't. And I was like, I'm sorry. And so you may have to betray someone's trust to protect someone's personhood. You might have to betray someone's trust to protect someone's personhood. So you may have to tick somebody off. No, I do preach on the weekends. No, but we've got to be willing to say, somebody's going to be mad at me, somebody's going to be frustrated with me, somebody's not going to like, but it's what we ought to do. And so pushing past that and saying, hey, I'm sorry, a mandated reporter has to report. And so if you are in any capacity, you may want to find out that if your position within your company, or have, I'm looking back at Amable, hi Amable, with Ebenezer Healthcare Access. I don't know, with your work with Medicare, Medicaid, and your role with clients' health information, you may be a mandated reporter as a community health worker, and I'm not sure what kind of rules and roles kind of speak to that. But if you're kind of unsure, give the old Google a search, but most importantly, talk to Dr. Roper, talk to Pastor Kimma, talk to some of the experienced folks who have a good handle on, hey, here's how you should move forward. And if you need counsel, you can talk to us. Right.
But he is grown now, isn't he? So he good. He's good.
You don't have to have proof. Kids don't have to tell you anything. Suspect. Even without proof, you still should report.
So no, that's it. Yeah.
Because you're right. You you are not a detective, okay? Nancy Drew, whatever, Hardy Boys, whoever you. I'm ancient. Look at me. Right, yeah. Don't let the young people tell you different, okay? Yeah. Mimi coming too. Yeah, or maybe not. No, so you do not have to be a detective. You do not have to have an investigation or have any kind of, if you see something, say something. There are appropriate forms when we find suspicious behavior. We want to protect people. If you turn in your abuse prevention policy to page all the way in the back, all the way in the front, to page 2, we don't have the appendix to this. When I printed it out, I think that it's somewhere else in a file folder. So apologies, you should have had Appendix A, B, C, and D, and we don't have that for you. So I'm about to just reference these forms. I think one of these forms you have, but 2 of these forms you don't have. And so the first form is the injury report form. It's for a physical injury. So let's say Billy Joe trips down the steps and busts up his knee, and you give him an ice pack. You should fill out an injury report form, because you, as a brand new parent, there is a scratch on and Casey is like, what happened to him? What did you do? Because she cares about her kid. We know that children and vulnerable adults are cared for and beloved, and we want to make sure that if there's a question about what happened to Billy Joe's leg, we have something that we did this, we did that, and here it is documented. So, confession, I forgot how big he was, and I had a pan cooling on the stove, and his little toe hit the pan, and I was like, okay, I'm going straight to hell. I'm sorry. God has sent me to I felt horrible. Do not collect $200. Exactly. Please. I felt horrible. So my wife made me fill up an incident report form. So no. No. But that's right. And 4 out of 5 pastors are failing comedians looking for a captive audience, and I'm sorry I have you all today. So the injury report form is based on ODJFS's form. It's going to have you check a couple boxes and say, this is what happened, this is when it happened, this is what I did to stop it. That's all you need to do. Hopefully, if we don't have those on file in the office, we'll print some of those off today and have those available for you. Yes, boss. Thank you.
No, I was saying.
Oh. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's great. I hadn't thought about that at all. But yes, please make a copy of that form. If you don't have a copy, write 2 forms because you want to hand them something and then you want to be able to say if something comes back because, no, we live in a litigious society and everybody looking for, there are a million lawyers, 444, call 444. Blake Maisland is going to come for you and say that you beat up little Timmy in the backyard. I don't know. So we just want to make sure that it's turned into the leader of the ministry where the injury took place as well. So if you're not the leader of that ministry or organization, you want to make sure that they have a copy on file as well.
If, let's say, if one of the kids fills out a form because they fell down the steps, then I would want Anjane's heading up that group, but I also think the church needs to be aware. So that form, we want a copy of that form anyway. So let's say that Dr. Roper, so that we'll be aware of it just in case.
There are ways on our copier without a code that you can scan stuff to us. So if that's helpful, if you're like, they're not here and you want to make sure you can scan or copy that or scan it to yourself, we can do a little training on that as well. The abuse report form is that form that I've already passed out to you, that suspected abuse or witnessed incident of abuse. I think it is rare that you would do both forms, but this might be something where there's no physical sign. You didn't watch them fall down the steps, but it looks like they maybe got injured or hurt or what have you. And so with our work, in not only inside of the POWER program or at the after-school program at the Dayton Equity Center, or if it's here within our ministries at McKinley or yours, you just want your volunteers and staff to be able to look and say, okay, which one of these forms do I need? And be able to properly fill those out. And again, with this one, if you are not the leader of your ministry, please send that to the leader of your organization, and please give us, if it happened in this building, please give us a copy as well. Please give us a copy. The abuse report form is turned into the senior pastor. This must be done immediately. So don't wait. Act now. If you are not comfortable turning this report into the senior pastor, it is returned into the DS, the district superintendent. In the United Methodist Church, there's a whole bunch of bureaucracy that's delightful. You are sitting here in McKinley United Methodist Church, which is part of the great Miami River District, which is everything from here to Cincinnati, southwestern part of the state. And our district superintendent is currently the Reverend Dr. Jen Lucas. It will soon be the Reverend Dr. Suzanne Allen. And so there are ways in which you can find that. You can go to WOCUMC.org, WOCUMC.org, because we're in the West Ohio Conference of the United Methodist Church. And we will send that link out to you, that email out to you, so that if there is, for instance, and we would never want this to be the case, one of our pastors is the person who's suspected of the abuse situation, you may say, hey, I need to send this to someone else because I'm worried it's going to get buried, it's going to get lost, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. So, all of that to say, Ohio is a good faith state, so your name will not go on any further documents with this report, and the process will proceed. So you're not inclined to come and testify in some court or this or that. You're not going to be followed up with. You will be followed up with, but your name will not be publicized. Up-to-date contact information is important so that there's clarity, understanding, and efficiency. The annual permission form for participation is something that's also on file. This is Appendix D. So, Mr. Love, I didn't know this, but maybe we already have a permission form, so we'll have to look at that. I don't have that in my files, but Deb probably does. So I'll ask Reverend Deb to see what we currently have and if it needs to be updated. So that would traditionally be at the end of your document, and again, I'm sorry I don't have that. That's fine, I can take care of that. That's Appendix D, the written permission forms. So we already kind of notated that we wanted written permission forms. We may have it. Yep, cool, got you. And then there's an out-of-the-area permission form. If we would go on a special field trip, we went on special field trips. ODJFS has their own forms. We fill those out for transporting children. They are involved in the paperwork, but if you're transporting people here who are vulnerable adults or children, you would need to get an out-of-the-area permission form and emergency medical information for all of those, anytime you leave and go on a trip of some kind. Full compliance, this is F in SAFE, working our way down, affirms the importance of our policy to protect. Full compliance affirms that the importance of what we do and why we do it. Remember that the what is about giving value, and the why is because we love, we care. Full compliance protects the participants, it protects the leaders, and it protects the community. So this kind of protection means that we don't say, well, I know I know DeAndre's mom, so it's totally fine for XYZ to happen. Or, that's my cousin, so I don't need to report that. No, we don't want to make any kind of exceptions. We want to make sure we're in full compliance, and we continue to do so as we move forward. Last page, which is somewhere. Go. You are protected because when you agreed to lead or serve, you will not be alone in the task of serving or leading. The church commits to this. And so as your partner, as your as a person who maybe holds a lease for you or a contract, McKinley United Methodist Church is committed to your organization and to making sure that it's solvent and in full compliance. Having the support of others and the policy gives value to our organizations, to our leaders, and full compliance means that you affirm the safe space policy, and it means complying with all the requirements with regard to forms and reporting, which is why we're asking you to sign that 7 different kind of affirmations and have that on file for you. Effectiveness, finally, refers to the good results we see when we support leaders and participants. The effectiveness and the credibility given to the program supports everyone involved. This is where we revisit the 2-person or the Romer rule. The 2-person rule we follow refers to always having 2 approved leaders at all times with any vulnerable adult, child, or the like. 2 are necessary or access to a second person. Trust me, when Jared and I are standing there at the end of the day and it's 1 kid at the after-school program and it's 7:41, and Jared, I want Jared to go home, Jared wants me to go home, but no, that's the problem. So yes, absolutely want the kid to go home. That's damaging for them, honestly, to be left there. So we always want to make sure that there are 2 are necessary or access to a second person when serving our children, student, youth, and vulnerable adults. Now, I know Jared and I look like we're related. That's neither here nor there. But when you are talking about this, 2 people means usually 2 unrelated people. And, the question always comes up, well, what if they're my 4th cousin? If you live in the same house, right? If you go to the same Thanksgiving, if you're stuck together, sitting at any type of family service, whether wedding or funeral, you're related to them. But if you know that Betty Sue's cousin in 1960, no, we don't want to hear that. That's not relation. We're talking about the fact that we don't want a family kind of environment where someone might just feel like they want to protect their family member over protecting a child or vulnerable adult. So 2 unrelated persons that need to be there at all times. A roamer is someone like an usher or a greeter or a security person or a leadership team member who is attentive to the space where the activity is taking place. In our workforce development, some of our meetings, we had Brother Pitts there to kind of create a good learning environment. Now, he was really there for security, but we didn't want to tell folks that. We wanted to let people know that we had someone who was watching, not just to make sure people didn't fall asleep, but to make sure that if something would jump off or we wouldn't see something, someone would be able to see it before maybe we did if we were focused on something else. A roamer stops to observe or check in to make sure all is well. The roamer is also available via cell phone in the event that they are needed to assist. There may be times that challenge that 2-person rule. If this requirement is challenged, A written report of the incident where there were not 2 people must be turned in on the day that it occurs. Stuff will happen. Things will jump off. And in the event of an emergency, in the scenario I was talking about, Jared or I, if we became injured and had to go to the hospital, heaven forbid, that might be a scenario where you'd have to fill out that report and say, hey, this is what happened, this is the day that it occurred, and turn it into your leader. And if it happened here in the building, we want to have a copy of that on file as well. Finally, we want to show love with our actions, how much we value our children and vulnerable adults, and we want to encourage love in all settings. We ask that you read the policy. Thank you, Ms. Cheryl. And we ask that you ask questions of our leaders. Most of all, we want to say thank you, Mr. Love, and all of you for being willing to share in this important work and question why we do what we do, why we do this every year. So with that, I'm finished with the kind of the meat and potatoes of the event. But what kind of questions do you have about those 4 things that we just covered? SAFE, the fact that we're serious, the fact that we give attention no matter what, the fact that we're in full compliance, and the fact that we're effective when we do this. Anybody at all?
So if we say something happens with Ebenezer, hi, Amable, which should not, but so let's say something happens with Ebenezer. So everyone, like every other entity in the building will be alerted, like Dayton Equity Center will know, the church will know, or how's it work?
No one will be alerted necessarily immediately. When you turn in that report form to the senior pastor, or you turn that report form in to your ministry leader, they need to make a decision as a mandatory reporter to go to the authorities, to investigate with a kind of a compliant or a licensed kind of person. And so at that point, once it goes above them, then it may be reported. But to protect the persons involved, we will not send out a mass text or a mass email saying, I'm just trying to distinguish what you're saying. What we will do, and why we do this every year, is because we want to make sure that there are 0 incidents that happen here. And so if there is an event where something were to happen, you all as ministry leaders would know first, and then it would be disseminated to the other staff persons. So for instance, need to know kind of basis, because we would not want to jeopardize someone's report. Let's do it.
So a child abuse scenario. One of their families that they regularly see came, and there's the child suspected of abuse, but then the person that's in Ebenezer, they're also a member of McKinley. So would that be something that you would get a copy of that paperwork to know after it's been to the proper authorities? That's what I mean, like paperwork-wise. Of course, that's not something we need to know to protect them. But paperwork-wise, is this like cross, or does it stay in that department on a need-to-know basis? Need-to-know people. Okay, thank you. That's what I want to know policy-wise. That makes sense.
Yeah, and there is a chain of kind of reaction that we could throw up on the board and go all the way out and say, okay, at this point, once the senior pastor receives it and reports it to the district superintendent and to the board, then it might go to the authorities. And if it goes, we could go that chain. What we need to be concerned about is, did it go to the ministry leader and did it go to the senior pastor? Because this building is whose house? So we, as shepherds of this house, want to make sure that we're being responsible. And so that's why you'd send it if let's say you're a Dayton Equity Center staff. Someone recently asked a question a couple months ago. Well, do I report something? Do I need a separate form for my organization? In the Dayton Equity Center, no. You may have a separate form at Ebenezer or in your facility for any number of reasons, But all you need to do is report it to McKinley, because this is McKinley's building. They hold the insurance, and they're responsible for what happens in this building, regardless of who done it. So that's why we need, in the paperwork process, not only a copy that might be sent to the parents of the person involved, a copy that is sent to Reverend Kimma as the senior pastor, and also a copy to the ministry leader of whatever ministry, if it's Girls Emerging to Maturity, if it's Dayton Equity Center related. Those are 3 different places where that needs to go. And so beyond that, each of those mandated reporters then has a responsibility to carry that on to whom they need to speak to for compliance. But then it would not be then shared until an investigation is finished. And if there is abuse, then that person or that entity would be handled, and then there would be a kind of a report. Can't stress enough the immediacy of what we do. It's hard because we're busy, and it's like, okay, one more thing to do. At the end of the day, I want to go home. Please do it as soon as possible, before you forget, before you kind of move on, because it's our responsibility to make sure people are cared for. Anything else? Miss Cheryl.
Adults. I deal with adults because of the NA program, and I know some people deal with adults for the food ministry. So, say for instance, an incident takes place. You may not see it because we don't go down there beaten. We might sometimes. So, if someone comes to you and say, "Well, this happened," writing an incident report might be a little hard. One thing, getting their names. They don't, only names they use are their first name. So that might be a different situation, making out a report.
Something that they feel strongly enough about to bring outside the group. You're right. They're a very closed. They're a very tight knit group that support each other, and that's for a variety of reasons. But I think if they leave that group and come to you and say, "Ooh, Miss Cheryl, let me tell you what happened at the meeting. I'm not sure about this," then that has they've already decided that it's bigger than that. So we'll go through the same processes. So that part, but.
I would encourage you to report it regardless, even if it's their initial. They go by AD. Okay, like report it, because we want to make sure that if something would come back, there are churches right now that are paying out hundreds of millions of dollars because they sat here like you and I and went, "Hey, we don't know," because it's confusing. It is confusing, but I would lean on the side of caution and just report anything. So if someone comes to you or you see something, write it down on that report form and put it on Pastor Kimma's desk or on Arlene's desk so that we can make sure that gets to where it needs to be. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look at God. That's cool. Look, I don't like doing any extra work. Imagine that. She's clutch. Reverend Deb Clutch. Questions about the Amable. Hi. Good, how are you? I'm going to come down and see you. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Aimable Ngamodiza. I work for Ebenezer Healthcare Access. And I'm very, very pleased to be here for those kind of comments and remarks. And I would like to add about the last question that has been posed about the situation. As I understand, you are talking about the abuse that we are witness here in the church. So we are not talking about the abuse that people are coming to talk to us. Yeah? Because that's the very, very, very big difference. Otherwise, we are going to report day by day, every day. Yeah, that's why the question that has been posed right now, it's related about that. Because let's say someone is coming to see us, so we are dealing with vulnerable people. He told us that he has been abused or she has been abused. That become a kind of internal situation. I don't think it's something about related to McKinley Church issue. So that question we are going to deal in turn, and I don't see how we can report to the McKinley Church. McKinley Church is not involved. But we are going to report, of course, to the authorities. Yeah. So that's why I want to, to be sure to see the frontier, where we can go, what we can report, what we can, I want to respect the process, the policy, McKinney Church, to be sure that I understand very well what we are talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Amale, for explaining that, because I want to be clear that the policy involves the 10,000 square feet of church building that we are responsible for and that we occupy together. So if there are things that are happening outside of this space with anyone who's involved here, it needs to be reported. If it happened a time ago in another place and it's just someone coming to you as a person from Ebenezer Healthcare Access, that is a little bit different. So if for our outside organizations, Ebenezer, all of our kind of contracted or leased kind of entities, your job is inside of the building. This is the policy that governs what you do. We're asking you, if you experience or see or witness abuse here by any or hear of any of our staff members, volunteers are doing so, we need to hear about that. If you're working with a client, as you're talking about, who had abuse somewhere else, that has no bearing on this abuse policy, because we're trying to steward this building and make sure it's safe. So this has, and this is why we always pair our in-service with building concerns, because if there's no cameras, if the buzzer on the door isn't working, if the guardrails, someone could get injured, or someone could be abused, or something could happen, and we don't have the structures in place to do that. So this is just another structure to say if something happens in this structure, we need to know about it, regardless of who did it or what happened. If it happened outside of this structure, as long as it's not an employee, a staff person, or someone related to McKinley or any of the other entities, it's not inside of our purview. We have no jurisdiction, we have no concern, but we have no authority to kind of deal with that situation. So you would not need to report that. Did I make any sense there? Cheers. Thank you so much. Excellent question. There's a fine line there between what needs to be reported and what's up to you to report. It is now 3:16 on the dot. We do have some concerns that we want to bring before you from the building as we kind of transition. I'm going to invite up with me Andrell Jones, who for a time was our HR manager here at McKinley and set up a lot of the practices and the policies that you see. She is currently working for the Dayton Equity Center as our HR manager, and as someone who really does make sure that I don't go to jail. Turn to your neighbor and say amen. Oh, praise the Lord. So as she comes, she's given you a handout and wanted to just let you know about some things that have happened or will happen, or that you make sure that you understand what some of our building capacity kind of concerns are. Did I do okay, Doc? I'll hold it.
Yeah. Well, first I want to know, do you all have a copy of this? This is the, upside down. This is the, for the church and for DEC and for Global Village Emergency Plan. And you'll notice in the offices, there are maps, exit maps, to show you where tornado safety is, to show you the quickest exit. And my friend Arlene did the arrows for us, made the maps look real good, or exit maps. Pay attention when you go by, okay? Now, what I wrote down, this is all I'm going to talk about.
fire exits and evacuation routes. I guess I need my glasses on. That would help. Oh my goodness. Okay. Fire exits and evacuation routes. That's what I just talked about. Building access. We got a lot of people coming in here for the pantry and for the clothing place and for food. And they're coming upstairs. I know there's a bathroom downstairs they can use too. They're coming upstairs, they're in the hall, talking on the phone, sitting down, real loud, playing music and all that stuff. Kind of discourage that if you see it and ask them to stay downstairs because this is an office. This is, we need quiet most of the time. Only authorized individuals should have access to the facility. Maintenance issues. If you notice any potential hazards, like maybe a fuse is blown or when you plug in something that sparks, let us know. I'm not sure, we don't have a report problems phase, do we, yet?
That we have license. So Jason fixes a lot of the stuff around here that is preventative. Thank you for that. If you see something, Dr. Roper. Well, it doesn't mean we're going to do anything about it.
I was sitting in the pew outside my office, was that 2 weeks ago, and Lambertine was she came down and saw her come down the steps, we're talking, hey, how you doing? She goes to the fuse box. Just goes to the fuse box, opens the fuse box and starts switching off fuse. I'm like, what is she doing? Long story short, we found out that just as a result, because I saw her doing it, that there's an issue with the Keurig and something else and a plug up there that blows a fuse every time they do something. And I'm like, boo, I'm like, sweetie, okay, we need to know that. This is the, so her adjustment was to just come and redo and pop the, I'm like, okay, so we do need, because people think that, and we got to operate better, because I think people think, oh, okay, well, I know how to deal with it. But the issue is you shouldn't have to deal with it. And so, but if you don't say anything, we got to foster a culture of excellence that says if it's broke, we got to fix it. So we need to do that. So I don't know if we necessarily need to form, but we just need to put some stuff out there that says, as a result of this meeting, this is what, and I know we've got to work on leases and different things for next year, because based on the fact that you are a tenant in this building, there are some expectations. On both ends, there's expectations for you to have certain things, but there are also expectations from us to do things like turn off lights at the end of the day. Every day that you in here, when you leave, you need to turn the lights off. Every single day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, even Saturday, if you here. Every time I'm here in the evening, there are lights left on all around this building. Every time I'm here in the evening. And so where's you are? So I'm gonna talk about her. So I was talking to Ronte the other day. I said, Ronte, and it was cold as hell. And the door is open because they were delivering. But I'm standing there, I'm like, okay, it's been like 5 or 10 minutes. The door's been open like 10 minutes. We heating the outside. There's things that we got to figure out so that we don't incur additional costs for you. Utilities are high. And so there's things that we just need to figure out on both ends. So we want to make the disclaimer today that on both sides, we need to make sure that we're taking care of and enlist the help of everyone here so that we can run more efficiently. But that light situation, all of us come from mamas who used to smack our hands about leaving lights on. And we just walk out the door. There are lights on every single night. Every single night. So we need to, and it shouldn't be anybody's job to run around, turn off lights. That part is nobody's job except each of us individually. So we just got to do better on both ends. So did we fix the thing with Lamartine and the fuse? Where are we with that? Did we talk to Jason? Here, sir. Sir, would you take this?
Detectors on Jason. I talked about that. That would probably a cost of a couple $100 to do motion detectors throughout the whole building, as many as you can put. Yeah, they're not that expensive anymore. Technology has really come down in cost. That's the purchases that we already have, Jason, so you wouldn't incur all of the labor. So you're talking about $200 to $300 to buy the motion detectors. Jason can install them. About the circuit, he knows about the circuit. It's drawing from in the summertime, it's drawing from the air conditioners up there. It's too much on one circuit, in other words, according to Jason. So he knows about it. What his solution is, I don't know. I mean, he knows what to do.
Talking about, and I love she's talking about stealing power from one circuit to the other. Like if it's 12 over here and 4 over here, he's talking about stealing from one to balance them out, different things. That's their language.
And he's done that before up there. And I know he mentioned that to you. So all of that to say, if there are maintenance issues, if there are things that you see, we do want to hear about them. We have a prioritization list for that, and we make sure that that prioritization happens in a way that's effective for the whole building and not just for your area. Bless you. I know it's hard because this one thing is really bothering you. We are on it, and so we'll want to just make sure as McKinley, we're letting you, please let us know if there are maintenance issues so that we can report that to Jason.
Yes, you're welcome. Emergency procedures. I'll make sure you get a copy of this. I'll send it out in email because it does tell you what to do when you think somebody is a risk, or when we have a tornado or whatever. Yeah, a person being a risk, if something's being, and we have a document that tells you how to recognize when somebody, and you may need to keep. Okay.
That, Williams, Dr. Williams, just some training for those of us, because we're going to encounter people with issues. My first encounter when I got here was, who is that?
90 minutes, y'all. We're coming up on 90 minutes.
It was Kenyatta. And she got me out there. I know you. I heard. I'm like, oh, okay. So we calmed down and we talked for a long time, actually. But I could tell that there were some things going on with her. So she wasn't escalating, though. So we were okay. But there are times when people are. And we've run into situations where, they've been Dr. Roper done rubbed somebody the wrong way. And they threatened her. And so we had to call the police, make police report and stuff like that. And so it does happen. When you're dealing with communities where mental health resources are disparate and all of that, you're going to run into it. So let me work on that one. I think we probably need a short training.
The main thing I learned from this guy, when you have a crazy person, call the squad. When you have a mental, call the squad and they'll come and get them.
No, if someone is injured or hurt or does not seem well, the authorities, and by the authorities, we obviously want EMS. There's someone called the Dayton Mediation Center. They can help with interperson crisis care. There's some other options other than the police. However, we do want to make sure that the right authorities are here. We had someone say, well, do y'all have a banned list of people? No, we do not have a banned list of people. We're a church. So, y'all, we can't just ban, come on, all right, Reverend. Now you're preaching. No, so we don't ban people. If it's something as severe as making a police report and there's a restraining order filed, you'll know about that. But we need to make sure that if you see something, you say something, and if you see something and it's something of an injurious nature or a risky nature, you call 911 and you follow this report. Yes. Yes, you're right. They're moving out of. Right, because they got to come from Abbey Avenue. All right, and that.
Okay, last thing I wanted to say is we're going to do some drills. We need emergency drills, tornado warning drills, or intruder, active shooter and drills. We need drills so we'll know what to do if something happens. Short, but just look out for them, and I appreciate everybody participating. Okay, and that's it.
So the police will do active. Well, they were the sheriff. And the sheriff. So, but yeah, they were very, very helpful, very thorough.
Yeah, we were talking about lights and responsibilities and things like that. I'm usually the last one here on Thursday. So I know the one day I called you and asked you about the alarm system because Ebenezer came down and was like, oh, well, I'm about to go. Set the alarm. I'm like, I don't have to go. I don't know how to do it. But then you saying turn the lights off. Like if it's my responsibility to turn all the lights off downstairs, I can start doing that. And if you want me to start setting the alarm, I can do that too. But I just don't know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing to keep the utilities down and the door closed when they prop it open.
All of that.
You know,
All of that.
it's so much to
It's
do
a
down
lot.
there. So I could try to keep the door closed, but sometimes they prop it open for their friends. Like, come on, come on. I keep the door open, you know.
Building manager, how are you? Coming, depending on some decisions being made by every single entity in here who's, every lessee in here may be contributing to a new safety system, and you'll receive training on that. We want to just make sure that we keep this building safe, shutting windows, turning off lights. Everything needs to run efficiently and to the best of our ability to keep everyone safe. And so, what's that?
There is no shade thrown, but if the doorbell is ringing, we're letting people in, and we really don't know where they're going. Are y'all gonna leave me out there? Y'all know we don't know. Well, but I think the solution will be this new system, and so that and I just asked Dr. Roper about it earlier today. So we'll have to get on that. We're on that, and however long it takes, our person is that Patrick to install the system. So we're going.
So our IT manager for this this place. Victor Patrick has done a great job of updating our Wi-Fi and getting us to kind of a place where seamless kind of connectivity. And so we want to make sure that we install some video cameras upstairs in the last year. When I got here, there was a whole lot that has been done in the last several years, and there's a whole lot more that needs to be done to keep us safe. And so if you have ideas, if you're wanting to know, those are some of the things that are coming down the pike. Did you anything else?
I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Couple more things. Room reservations. If you look around the room. This is a quarter of the people that occupy this space, and there's a lot of people in here. We often assume that because this is our whatever, because we're the Dayton Equity Center, we're Ebenezer Healthcare Access, we're McKinley United Methodist Church, we should be able to go into any place, anytime. And if you need a room reserved, please go online to mckinleyumc.org/events. Please do it at least a week in advance, if not 2, so that Arlene can get that and our trustee chair and our pastor can review that, so we make sure that you have the room that you need. So regardless of who you are or what organizations you work with, we have created a system that alerts people when you make that request, and Ajane will let you know. We're annoying about how we get back to you about that, and I'm always, last time I messed it all up, and I was asking people, and they had already fixed it, so I'll stay out of it. But Arlene does a wonderful job of getting right back to people and saying, hey, this room is reserved, and we want to say thank you, Miss Arlene, for doing that great work. But if you need a room, if you want to use the social hall, want to use the cafe, you can't use Fred's office. I know it's nice and swanky, and David will be up there soon. You can't use it. Sorry, it's off limits. But if you need a room, we want to make sure that that's available for you and that everybody in the building knows, so that they're not, coming in there and saying, hey, let me take your soul. We want to make sure that you get a kind of accustomed to that. Furnished offices. Most of your offices are furnished. If you'd like to move something out of your office, you need to let someone know. And I know we've kind of just been in the middle of a pastoral transition, in the middle of a transition in my own personal life, and in the middle of a transition in your life. You probably have moved into some space. You said, what the heck is this? And you put it in wherever. And I have personally cleaned out that hallway twice. I know you have. There is stuff. Here's the thing. Michael Cunningham, an old friend of mine, said to me one time, United Methodist churches are hoarders. And they are. Dr. Roper will tell you. Some of this furnished office stuff is nice. Some of it is old. Some of it is you don't like it. What we need to do is we want those to continue to be furnished offices in the future. We don't want it to be empty when you leave out or when you're not there. So if you have things that you'd like to do, any changes to the physical nature of your room, you need to have that approved. And by physical, I mean if you want to hang a giant thing from the ceiling, if you want to, obviously if you want to, put up a picture frame in your office, you don't need approval for that. But if you're going to drill into the wall 78 times, you do need approval for that. So the physical structure, yikes. No, trust me. And wink, wink, hint, hint. So, so we just want to, you may be absolutely within your right to remove something from your office. We just want to know so that if it needs to be moved to another part of McKinley's building, if it needs to be moved to Waste Management's facility up yonder, or what have you, we don't want something just sitting in that hallway because then we look like junky people. We're not junky people. Yeah, no, the fire marshal going to beat me, okay? They're going to come and hit me on the head. Every 3 years, I think. So I was here in 21 when they came, and they came this year, didn't they? I know. Miracle of God. Miracle of God. Yes, Doc. Now, this is not one of the amenities. Hold on, Miss Andrea. Hold on. This is not Weight Watchers. This is not. Don't worry. It sounds like your Santa gift is on the way. Your Santa gift is on the way.
That. And sometimes they want to change their clothes. They want to be able to sit in a chair and put on a pair of pants or something like that from a dress.
Absolutely, and I think that you're well within your right to move that table into the women's restroom, and we can do that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Saturday, so you're going to do it Saturday? Look at Jesus work. Wow. All right. Because if God don't do it, it won't get done. Okay, all right. Your complaint has been heard. We're rounding the corner. Yes, Fred. Yes. Oh, here we go. Most of the stuff. Okay. He got permission after he did it. That's what happened. That's what happened. No, listen. So it took me a year and a half to move anything into my office at all. So we want your space to feel like home. We want you to own it and maintain it. We want you to clean it. We want you to be present to it. It doesn't have to be the same way it was, but we just need to know so that if there is an old piece of carpet up there that you don't want, it's not a tripping hazard. So, we're not picking on you. Your creativity should inspire others to do the same. We want others to be inspired in the right direction. So, inspired in the right direction. Yeah, right, right. Whoa. So we want you to be inspired in the right direction. If you have something in your office, please come see a staff member of McKinley, and we'll make a plan to either put that in front of the trustees, if it rises to that level, or we'll make a plan to get that into a new space, or to tell you, sorry, the copier is, or the whatever is, or the this is, or the sorry. So, and we hear you when you're saying, hey, we are missing furniture, and I need something. We want to make sure that you have the ability to get that. If it's a functional part of your furnished office, we are not providing, hot towel warmers in the women's restroom. I know, but you can pray for it. Keep praying. Keep praying. Keep on Jesus. All right, last thing. Yes. That's right. Because there's a little sign that says restrooms on the top, and no one sees that. The tiniest sign says restrooms. Yes. No. And so thank you for applying for that grant and for securing that. It's exciting. So, last thing, trash. We now have a locked on our dumpster. Why? Because that dumpster was getting overfilled. We used to have Republic Services. I nearly went to prison trying to get us out of our contract with Republic because they were charging us $400. Our waste management contract should be about $100, but if we overfill that garbage can, if we put something in front of it, it triples. So we need your help. If you have some trash you'd like to take out there, please alert us. Don't please just set it somewhere. Alert us so that we make sure that we tap our maintenance person or our janitor to take care of that, so that falls in line with furnished offices. We want to make sure that it's not sitting somewhere, or it's not sitting in front of the garbage disposal or the garbage bin. There are keys for that dumpster. You can get access to those keys if you need to move some stuff into the dumpster, but we were having issues with overfilling, and we were concerned that it was overfilling from outside our organizations. So we wanted to make sure that we're kind of controlling that environment, and we're not kind of liable for extra payments that then turn into lease payments for the Dayton Equity Center or Ebenezer or whoever. Finally, thank you. Thank you for who you are, how you show up, for the ways in which we're able to love each other and care for each other. This stuff is not fun. It is not easy, but it is our Christian duty. It's necessary, and it's our duty as people who share the same space, not just to get along and smile at each other when we're at the Keurig and popping the electrical line, but it's about us making sure that we can work well together, because this is a dynamic institution that brings together people where there was a commissioner last night who kept picking up their job because of all the stuff that happens on a day-to-day basis, not just because this space is magical, but because you are magical. So thank you so much. What we need from you before you leave is we need a signed copy of this abuse prevention form. We need a signed copy of this abuse prevention form. If you do not have a pen, Natasha is bringing around some pens for you to sign. If you have questions, you can talk to us. And if there are any further questions, you can reach out to Reverend Deb at deb@mckinleyumc.org. That's deb@mckinleyumc.org. We are really excited because we get the chance to work with people who deserve the services we're offering. So thank you so much for what you do, Mimi. Thank you so much for what you do, Dr. Roper. So if you did not get a form, they're at the back of the room. Oh, put them. If you want to leave them on the back table, you can give them to Natasha. Wow. Hand-delivered service with a smile. Wow. Me and you, Natasha, the Vanna White of McKinley. Reverend Kimma, do you have any closing remarks or prayer? Close. $100 minutes. 100? 100. I own it. It was my bad jokes that made us to 100. But please. No, that's right. I'm going to tell the story. No.